Number 1.
Many years ago, I acquired a stalker. He stalked me to my job, to school, to my parents' house, home, rifled through my trash, the whole nine. I was constantly terrified, even though I had a restraining order against him. One day I came home from the store, walked into my house leaving the front door open, and walked straight into the kitchen. When I turned around, this motherfucker was standing behind me. I'm right next to the sliding glass door, and on the other side of it, our Great Dane was going ballistic. He started moving towards me, and let me tell you, your life doesn't flash before your eyes when you think you're about to die. Time slows down, and it seems like an eternity. The only thing I could think of was the dog, and that dog was the only protection I had. The knife block was too far away, and he could turn the knife on me easily. He was twice my size. So I reached over and did the lock on the glass sliding door, and let me tell you, that dog came in like a wrecking ball and tore his ass up. And I was just frozen. I couldn't move. My neighbour, who was the living personification of Petunia Dursley, called the cops because she heard the screaming. The cops show up a little while later and take him to the hospital, then to jail for violating the restraining order. They impounded his car after searching it, and what they found was horrifying. Souvenirs, condoms that taken from my trash, stained period underwear I'd thrown out, Starbucks cups with my lipstick marks on them. But that's not the worst. There were photographs of me from everywhere. Photos of my roommate, my mum, my brother, fling. But what made my blood run cold was the shovel, duct tape, cat litter, the unopened box of condoms, and rope. All the accoutrements one would need to say, kidnap, rape and murder a woman. The kicker? When it all went down to court, he countersued me and my roommate for the cost of his medical bills, and to have our dog put down because he was a vicious animal and a danger to society. The judge said, "You have lost your goddamn mind, if you ever had one to start. If that were my daughter, I'd have you put down."
Number 2.
I go and walk my dog around my house pretty late at night, between 12 AM and 1 AM. Maybe not the safest thing, but I live in the woods and away from people. Anyway, I start walking downstairs and notice my sister's door is open and the light is on. It struck me as odd, considering she moved out 6 years ago, and nobody ever goes in there. I walk in to turn the light off and close the door, and I see a man trying to hide behind the closet door. It's broken and filled with boxes, so there's no real way he could hide from me. I act like I didn't see him, and I went and grabbed my shotgun from the other room. Went back in and told him to move or I'd fucking kill him. He jumped up from the closet and took off running as fast as he could, right past me and into the garage and out into the woods. I could have shot him, but I didn't. I saw his face. A few days earlier he'd knocked on my door, claiming to know my neighbour, and said he was looking for copper to sell. I asked if I knew or had any old copper he could have. I gave him a few old car batteries I had, and that was that. He said he had 2 daughters he was trying to take care of. I didn't call the police, but that's the extent of my mercy. If he came back the next night, well, he was dead.
Number 3.
This once happened to a girl I dated. I'll leave out specific details because I don't know how much she'd want it out there. She used to work at a home improvement store, and there was this little middle-aged guy who used to come in regularly and hang around the store and talk to her. He seemed a little slow and clingy, but harmless. He would always address her by name and say that she was pretty. One day he was in the store as they were closing, and he saw a male co-worker give her a hug before he left. The next day, that male co-worker woke up to find his tyres slashed in his driveway. No one made any connection to the nice middle-aged guy who came in to buy batteries 5 times a week. Meanwhile, this girl had been noticing that she was always losing underwear at home. She just assumed she had been losing them in the wash or simply misplacing them and thought nothing of it. Then it happened. She was sleeping one night and woke up to find this guy standing silently over her bed, staring down at her with her panties pressed against his face. She flipped the fuck out, and he ran out the sliding glass door onto the back of the house, the same unlocked door that, As they found out once he was caught, he had been coming into night after night for months to watch her sleep and masturbate with her underwear.
Number 4. Have you ever walked around your own home and get an odd feeling? Like almost everything in your house is normal, but very slight things have changed, but you can't fucking figure it out. About an hour ago, this happened to me. I've been house sitting for my mother all week as she's been on a cruise. Everything has gone smoothly up until today. Again, around 10 PM I woke to the sound of static. The crinkling noise was quiet at first, but my eyes swung open as the sound became deafening. I jumped off the couch to press the power button on my TV. Once the horrible noise was gone, my mind was finally finished calibrating. I looked at the couch as a feeling of confusion came over me. I didn't remember falling asleep on the couch. In fact, I could have sworn that I'd fallen asleep in my bed. As a way to wake myself up further, I started to look around the living room. I have 2 couches, one next to the window and one facing the TV against the wall. On the window couch, I noticed a folded up piece of paper. I walked over and unfolded it. "Spot the differences," it said with a winky face, written out in chicken scratch. I smiled. I had completely forgotten that I gave a key to my girlfriend. I yelled out, "Alright, I'll play." The living room. I put down the piece of paper and scoped out the whole room. The first thing I noticed was that my computer had been moved from the table next to the wall couch and onto the floor. The next difference I noticed was that my late grandmother's porcelain doll had been moved from the shelf on the wall to the spot where my computer had been. I stared into its black eyes, which clashed with its jester outfit. I truly felt afraid. Not just because these dolls are generally seen as creepy, but I actually feared for my well-being, even though I had no real reason to. The third difference I noticed was when my arm brushed against my shorts. When I sleep, I always keep a phone in my pocket, but it was gone. I looked all around the room, but I couldn't find it. "Okay, joke's over, babe," I yelled. I expected a response, but definitely not the one I got. After a few seconds of silence, the radio in my mother's room turned on. The blaring speakers played big band music, but the radio was so loud that it sounded more evil than gleeful. My mother's room. I sprinted down the hallway and ran into my mother's room. Anytime I'm faced with an unexpected loud noise, for some reason I get pretty angry. So as I reached for the volume knob, I began yelling. It was for no real reason, but I just kept yelling. Just as I was about to turn the radio off, a female singer jumped in. Her words were chilling. "Burned alive, my screams I recall. Years went by, people came and then we..." I shut it off. But that was just my body. My mind screamed at me to turn it back on, to hear what the hell the woman was saying. I put it to a low volume, but I didn't hear the woman's crooning or the band. Just a popular, catchy pop song. At this point, the whole "spot the differences" thing had slipped my mind. But when I turned around, it came back in a big way. My mother has 3 portraits above her bed, but to my horror, my head was cut out of each one. The fact that was an obvious threat didn't scare me the most. What did was the fact that somebody had the time to take out each picture, cut out my head, place the picture back into the frame, and hung it perfectly straight. I got into my bed at 9:45. The door to my mother's room has been open all day, and I never once noticed anything odd. I climbed on her bed to inspect the pictures further. Boom! I shit you not. What sounded like a gunshot came from across the hall of my room. The noise scared me so badly that I fell forward into the frames. My head was cut from the broken glass. At this point, any sensible person would have just left, right? I knew I should have, but it felt like my body was being pulled towards my room. With my back against the wall, I slowly opened the door to my room. I let out a shriek when I saw what was in my room. Everything was changed. It wasn't some things being moved around. Every damn thing in that room was moved to a different area, but there was only one thing out of place. A folded piece of paper sat on my pillow. Let's get obvious. The handwriting was even worse than the previous note. As I put down the note, I looked straight ahead. My bedroom was right next to our raised porch, with sliding glass doors keeping my room from being outside. A knot the size of a bowling ball grew in my stomach as I looked at the table on the porch. Bob had been set up right in the middle of it. As a side job, my mother teaches CPR, and Bob is the one of the 7 dummies we have for the classes. Bob was being propped up by what looked like an old rusty pipe. He had a ball gag over his mouth and knives in both of his eyes, but what scared me the most about Bob's mutilation was the message painted on his torso. Locks couldn't keep us out. That's when I heard footsteps under me, coming from the basement. My mouth slowly dropped open and I froze, trying to count the footsteps. From what I gathered, in those 5 seconds, 3 people were moving around in my basement. Just like that, my body kicked into overdrive. From what I gathered, in those 5 seconds, 3 people were moving around in my basement. Just like that, my body kicked into overdrive. I sprinted out of my room, down the hall and to the front door. I was scared out of my mind because the door to the basement is pretty much beside the front door. I hadn't even looked out the front door before I heard it.
No, there's no leaving.
I nearly got whiplash with how quickly my neck snapped back upwards. Outside my front door was a very built person, wearing a blue mechanic's outfit and a plain white mask. It seemed like the 5 seconds we locked eyes was actually 5 hours. But this person broke that illusion when he suddenly slammed his fist into the door's window. Not only did this give me a mini heart attack, but it also cracked open the glass. The thought of that man coming to my house sent me into a survival mode. No fear to freeze me up, only clear thinking to help me live through this. As I am writing this, I still don't know why I did what I did next. I smiled right at the man. I knew that 4 men were either in my house or trying to get in, but I smiled right in his damn face. I then turned around and started sprinting towards the back door. I could hear the man on my front porch yell,
"Fuck!"
as if he didn't expect me to do that. Once I reached the back door, I heard the basement door open, and a bunch of stomping footsteps followed. But before they could even all get out of the door, I was already halfway down my backyard porch steps. Once I reached the bottom, I looked behind me. The large gate that led into the backyard was wide open, and the man from earlier was in the opening, this time brandishing a bat. I didn't even look again to see if the man was chasing me. I just ran towards my back fence, hopped over it and started screaming for help. I have a small patch of wood behind my house, and luckily a few teenagers sat on a log chugging hard iced tea. It didn't take much of my story to convince them to let me use their phone. I explained everything to the operator. She told me that she had squad cars on the way, but that none of us were safe in the open. So we all ran up to my neighbour's house. If you're reading this, thank you, Daryl, for letting us in. The cops arrived 4 minutes later and swept the house before anything else. They didn't find anybody there, but they did find a bunch of horrifying tools set up in my basement. They assumed that I must not have been paying much attention to the basement much, but tried to reassure them that I had gone down there today at around 8:30 to play Xbox.
That's impossible. The whole setup they had down there would have taken at least 3 hours to put together,
the sheriff told me. The time frame of the crime didn't add up to any of us. They also questioned how I didn't wake up when they moved me. Talking to them honestly, I felt like a really bad nightmare sequence from a David Lynch movie. It didn't feel real. Most of the cops left around 11:45. They have a squad car set up outside in case I need them. I convinced my mum to stay on her cruise. I felt safe with the cop car. Besides everything being moved, things felt relatively normal, until I entered the bathroom, a room where I hadn't spotted the difference. Soap was all over the floor, my shower curtain was shredded, my phone was behind the toilet, wrapped in toilet paper, and another message was painted on the mirror. We are everywhere. We are everyone. No safe haven. It audibly said, how the fuck? Why wasn't this told me by the police? Why wasn't this room not brought up at all? My heart began to race again as I ran into my living room to look out the window. The squad car was still sat in my driveway, but nobody was in it. Instead, the 2 police uniforms sat on the hood. I tried calling 911, but my phone isn't working. My neighbours aren't home, even though they were 30 minutes ago. I'm not trying to write a cliché that author dies in the end story, because right now, I'm very much alive. But I'm worried that I won't be. But if I am, I want to share my story and ask all of you if you have been in a situation like this one where everything almost feels normal, but in fact, everything seems to be contributing to your death.
Hi guys, and thanks for watching my first video. Well, this is my first attempt at doing something like this. I've been watching a lot of videos, kind of like Bee Buster and Maker, Corpse Husband and the Lazy Masquerade, and I kind of really want to get into it, so this is my first attempt at one. Sorry for kind of the constant like mumbling and stumbling over my own words and stuttering. I do have a habit of doing that, and I'm trying to get out of it, and I think doing videos like this might help me kind of be able to speak more clearly. So just bear with me. If you like the video, give it a like, and maybe subscribe, and I will hopefully try and post more videos like this. And as time goes by, I might gain a bit more experience and be able to do better videos, kind of like making them a bit more creepy and adding more sound effects and the whole jazz. And you may have noticed my name is the Bearded Mary. People have asked me why it's the Bearded Mary. Well, it's the fact that being a gay man, older gays have a tendency to call younger gays Mary, and so I get called Mary a lot, and because I have quite a beard, I thought the Bearded Mary kind of stuck and it seemed quite good. So yeah, it's not just some random thing I've pulled up my arse. It does have a little bit of meaning, but well, again, thank you for watching my first video, and I'll hopefully have a few more videos posted up soon. Cheers.